Now, when I leave a voicemail, I do want to use a little FOMO, like, hey, this is Steven. Give me a quick shout. Well, who's Steven? Why are you calling what?
Let's say they don't actually pick the call up and now you're about to leave a voicemail. It's more just like a touch point, a reinforcement point. What's your take on voicemails? What do you think makes a good cold call opener? Do we do permission based or no permission based?
I absolutely despise permission based.
Welcome to another episode of the Modern Sales Leader Podcast. We're here to share battle tested tips and tricks from the trenches so that you can go implement changes to your business to see more success today. This conversation is with Steven Lowisz, CEO over at Identity Matrix. He's been in the sales leadership space for years, and he actually started selling at 14 years old. We go through some of his funny stories and encounters growing up in sales, but more importantly, he shares his takes on things like voicemails, subject lines, and how to handle gatekeepers. Let's dive in. What's up, y'all? We have Steven Lowisz here. He is an expert leader right now heading up Identity Matrix as CEO, but he's been in multiple sales leadership positions and he's here to share his wisdom with us today. Steven, welcome, brother.
Appreciate you having me, man. Um, you got it, right? CEO of Identity Matrix. It's a MarTech and demand gen platform. Started out selling when I was 16. Well, technically 14. I'm a sales guy at heart before I ever got into the MarTech space. True cold calling, smile and dial, old school, no automation. Not even that old. I just worked for a company at the time that was very old school. So yeah, I'm looking forward to talking about, gatekeepers, objections, all that
Dude,
fun
good to
stuff,
have you
man.
here. What were you doing at 14 years old?
14, I was going door to door selling lawn mowing and
Yeah.
landscaping. And by 16, I was making more than my teachers. At 16, typical hardest working, lowest paid story. I convinced my dad, who owns a talent acquisition consulting company, to let
Mm.
me try to sell. And so one minute I was going and handing my homework to teachers. And then the next minute I was driving to work where I sold Fortune 1000 leaders on talent acquisition consulting when I could
Wow.
barely spell it. So I got thrown into the deep end, had no real training, really sucked for a while, earned my stripes, did my first 1.1 at 19, sold 20 of the Fortune 500
Oh my
at
goodness.
21. So I learned through trial and error, though. No one has
Yeah,
screwed up
I mean,
more than
that's the
me.
way to learn and grow 100%. What was like the reaction or the interaction with these leaders who see a 16-year-old walking up to them? Did they judge you? Was there some stuff you had to work through or was it legit?
So it was before Zoom was popular. So yeah, we did some video calls. Now I have a baby face, but thankfully I've had to shave since I was like 13. So the beard
Yeah.
helped me a lot, but most of it was over the phone. That being said, the very first Fortune 1000 company that I actually visited was CBRE. They're like Fortune, I don't
Yeah.
know, 200 maybe. And I remember flying to Dallas with my dad, nearly having a panic attack sitting in the lobby of a skyscraper in Dallas. And after they grilled us and it was a tough meeting, they're like, hey, do you want to go grab drinks? And I remember just sweating bullets. I'm in a suit, I'm with a bunch of 40 and 50-year-old guys, but just sweating bullets thinking, don't card me, don't card me. And thankfully they didn't. But so yeah, some of it was awkward, but I got
Yeah,
away
man.
with a
Oh my
lot.
goodness. I love it. Like if there's a way to start in sales, I feel like it's when you're young because you can screw up, you can fail, you can fall on your face and you still have years to correct after that.
I was selling dog walking services at 10, had 0 customers, and I still have some of the old flyers. I would, have people tell me, "My dog's bigger than you." I don't know
Mhm.
what to tell you. No, thank you. I mean, no one's been shot down, rejected, or
I
screwed it
love
up
it.
more
I
than
love it.
me.
We're going to do some kind of hybrid of homeschool for our children as they grow up. And I'm definitely going to teach them about inventing and then entrepreneurship. And the idea is that they have to come up with an invention and then actually build it or assemble it or whatever. And then they have to go door to door through our neighborhood and try to sell one unit. And that's going to be a whole curriculum that I push on them to get them exposed to the life of sales because you got to start them young.
My favorite so first of all, I love that. My goal isn't to start necessarily a college fund for my kids. I've got 2 and I have
Oh, wow.
twins on the way. My
Congrats, man.
yeah, and
Oh my
3 of them are
goodness.
girls. So, my idea is start a fund where they can go use it for college, depending on what they wanna do, or start a business, etcetera. So, I absolutely love that. One thing I'll note is some of my best clients, even when I was, like, 14 walking around with lawn mowing flyers, they were the houses that had the door sign that
Mhm.
said "No solicitors." I just,
Yeah.
didn't see it
Yeah.
each time. Uh, and it was phenomenal. So I got tough
Well,
skin
when
pretty
they
young.
have a, very unassuming 14-year-old stroll up trying to sell them something, I'm sure they're not
Eh,
too upset by that. Um,
I've been cut out more than once, even at 14, but, like I said,
yeah,
tough skin early.
1000%, man. Cool. So you've been in this game for a long time then, and, really goal of this conversation is just to get some, like, practical insight into some of the most common themes that we deal with here in sales, like gatekeepers, like openers, like subject lines, all of that fun stuff. So just kinda wanna get your take on a few of these things. So first question would be, what do you think makes a good cold call opener? The first, like, channel there is, do we do permission based or no permission based? Is that all hogwash? Like, what do you like to do?
I absolutely despise permission based. Everything that I say and do is on the idea of would another sales rep say this? If
Mhm.
so, I'm wrong. It's all about pattern disruption. So a good opener, it depends on what you're selling, but a very simple generic one is, hey, Jack, did you see my email the other day? They have FOMO. What email are you talking about? No
Yeah, no,
idea.
no,
Did
I
I
don't know
miss
what you're
it?
talking about.
Yeah, exactly. Well, they just opened the door to tell them, why you emailed them. So I don't like permission based. One of my big ideas or philosophies is people misconstrue formality
Mm,
and professionalism. They are not the same. I love informality. Yes, I'll
yeah,
be professional, but even simple things like if I know I'm calling a man, it'd be, "Hey Jack,
yes.
what's going on, man?" Not, "Hi Jack, how are you? This is Steven
Yep,
with
yep.
identity," right? Very,
Yeah.
very
So
different.
my career has been very focused around entry level sales, SDR, and that's always something I have to coach every single rep on is you are not talking up at these people like they're bigger than you. You want to be, yeah, shoulder
Peer
to
to peer.
shoulder is what I call it, like shoulder to shoulder tone. You have authority, and I love what you said. There's a difference between formality and professionalism. Drop the formality. Like as
Yes.
soon as you go into a call like, "Hello, sir." It's like, "Okay, this is a weird call, sales call. I don't know what this is." But if it's like, "Hey, man, how's it going?" Like,
So
very different.
I used to look at it. Almost everyone knows a rich uncle or
Mhm.
someone around them, right? And what I noticed, so for the first 18 months that I was selling, I didn't earn jack, and I worked longer hours than anybody. And what I realized is, I'm sending paragraphs or trying to talk to these people like they're, the president. And what I realized, I would take my dad as an example. All right, I'm his son. I have to text him 3 times just to get a response, and we have a
Yeah.
good relationship. He's just
Yeah.
terrible at responding, and he runs, several businesses himself. He's busy. So I started to look at it as would this get my dad to
Mm.
respond or not? Would this keep my dad on the phone for 10
Yeah.
seconds or not? I think that's how we need to look at it. Executives respond with like one sentence in an email or a few
Yep.
words, right? Yet salespeople still think they should be blasting out paragraphs. The same thing can be applied to when you talk to them. Are you talking up at them like you just said, or are you talking like they're a person? We all put our
Yeah.
pants on the
Yeah.
same way.
So one of my favorite sales methodologies to follow is the Justin Michael method because it's so different than the traditional Agogi model where it's like, very like not very long emails, but longer emails, pretty rounded and professional. The JMM method is like choppy copy. Like if you were to tweet this message over, what would it look like? Follow that pattern interrupt, pattern interrupt. So back
I like
to,
that.
cold call openers, I fully agree where if you're doing what everyone else is doing, you're doing it wrong. Now I do like a permission based style opener. And if you want to tear it down, please do.
Okay.
But it's basically like, I'd be like, hey, Steven. And then you'd be like, yeah, Steven. Hey, Steven, Jack here.
Okay.
Look, I know I'm calling you out of the blue. Do you mind if I share why I'm calling real quick? And if it makes sense, we can talk. If not, you can hang up. No worries. Love it, hate it, why?
You're making it No, I think that's a good spin. It's more informal than what most permission-based openers are
Fair.
that I've heard. So, I actually don't dislike that really at all. I think it depends on your personality, though. So, you come off like a much nicer, more personable guy than me. People don't buy from me because,
If only you
they
could
like
FaceTime
me.
while you're cold calling,
Uh,
then they would get it.
Appreciate you. Um, I look at it as, my
Mhm.
personality is sarcastic, it's jovial, I'm gonna joke around with you, right? Now, obviously, I'll tone it up or down depending
Yeah.
on who I'm calling. If I'm calling a 60-year-old woman in a skyscraper, it's different than a 20-year-old tech guy on the beach, right? But overall, I think you can get away with that the way that you just did it, more
Mm.
so than I could. Yet, could you be as sarcastic and kinda
No,
jovial as me?
not at
Maybe
all.
not.
I'm way too awkward for that.
It's the only way I talk. My wife hates it.
Oh, I love it. Okay, so that's helpful. So maybe not like the formal permission-based openers. Really good point around there's a difference between formality and professionalism, and you can be informal but remain professional. I think that's a huge win.
I think the piece that I liked about you was I say it oftentimes like, "Hey, if you don't like what I say, hang up on me. If you don't like the info that I send, decline the meeting invite I'm
Yeah,
about to send you." I think when you give people that out and you make it into a little bit of a joke, it
yeah.
works really well. I think the traditional opener of like, "Hi, this is Stephen Lowisz from Identity Matrix. Can I tell you why I'm calling?"
No, you just
Now,
interrupted me. I don't want to talk
it's
to
a
you.
cold call.
Who are you? Yeah, 1000%. So
Yes.
let's go to the other end. Let's say they don't actually pick the call up, and now you're about to leave a voicemail. Do you think like voicemail should aim for callbacks, or are you more of the new school mindset that no, you're not trying to get a call back with a voicemail. It's more just like a touch point, a reinforcement point. What's your take on voicemails? Yep.
Leave them. That's number 1. I think a lot of people think they're pointless and they're not. What I noticed, especially when I was doing, 100 plus cold calls a day, people don't return voicemails. Now, when I leave a voicemail, I do want to use a little FOMO like, "Hey, this is Steven. Give me a quick shout." Well, who's Steven? Why are you calling? What? And then they'll respond to the email that you
Mhm.
send them right after. So it's not necessarily a touch point or just a touch point. I expect a response, but that response is likely
Yeah,
going to be
through a different
digital.
channel. Okay. Now you said leave voicemails. I agree, but every time, or should you give it some space between calls?
If you're going to leave if you're gonna call someone more than once in a day, do
Yeah.
not leave multiple. I think that's too much. I do leave a voicemail every time though, and I typically space calls out every 2 or
Okay.
3 days. I tend to be a little
Yeah.
bit more aggressive, and I've even made jokes in voicemails. One of my just quick anecdote, one of my favorite sales, I was selling into a very, very large auto supplier, think
Mhm.
Fortune 1000 again, and I got this woman on the line, took me a long time. It was a good call. She wanted info. I was still junior, so I said sure and sent her something. She ignored my calls for the next 2 years, literally 2 years, and I didn't give up. I'm not saying that was a good use of time, but I didn't give up. And on my last voicemail, I literally was laughing and said, "Jennifer, I'm gonna call you back. Just give me a shout." 2 minutes later, got the call
Oh
back.
my goodness.
They
Oh my
became a client.
goodness. I love it. I love it.
So, have a
Yeah.
little fun with it.
Yeah. I think that's a great point too. Cause everyone, I feel like when you're about to leave a voicemail mentally, you've already given up. And so you're not bringing any passion or creativity or thought to it. You're just like, hey, this is so and so with company trying to call you. Give me a call back. And I could go through my phone log right now at the voicemail transcripts and I would probably see that pattern every two calls.
I think so. I don't
Mhm.
listen to voicemails. I'll read the transcript of every voicemail that I get when, my iPhone transcribes it, right? You need to look at it like, no, they're not going to listen to this because everyone's got an iPhone. I think Android does it now too. What are they going to read that's super intriguing? If you are, "Hey, this is Stephen Lowe's with Identity Matrix. I'd love to talk to you about de-anonymizing website, yada, yada." They're going to read it like an
Yep.
email. It's
Yep.
boring. So put something in there that grabs their attention within those first 2, 3 lines of
Yeah, I
that
think something
transcript.
like you were saying, like, "Hey, Steven at Identity Matrix here, shot you an email." Like, now mentally, they're gonna go like, "Oh,
Yeah.
okay, email inbox. Oh, there's okay, maybe I'll engage that way." Right?
My favorite email subject line, if I left them a voicemail, is literally just left
Mm,
you a VM. Not voicemail,
mhm,
but a
mhm.
VM.
Way more human.
It piques it.
Yeah, way
Yeah.
more human.
Yep.
In all of my times managing outbound teams, I've always preached like, "Hey, let's leave voicemails." I would probably do it every other call, so you are a little more aggressive, which I don't think is bad. It's just a strategy. But every other call, we're gonna leave a voicemail. Only 3 reps have ever gotten a meeting booked from something like that, ever. And only like 20 reps have maybe gotten a legitimate call back. And this is multiple SDR teams, like over 60 SDRs that I've managed. So I just don't think it's a strategy you want to like rely on for sure, but don't neglect it is kind of my take.
Yeah, 100%. Again, my goal would be I'm gonna get a response on that email I'm about to send them. I wouldn't get a cold email response if I didn't
Mhm.
leave that voicemail. I found a direct correlation between the 2, but no, I don't care how good you are. Worked with, I don't know, hundreds of reps at this point. Um, I can probably think of, to your point, maybe 3 or 4 times that a callback
Yeah.
was actually
Yeah.
achieved.
So don't let it be the meat and potatoes per se. Let it just be just another touch
No.
point for sure. Now,
Yep.
gatekeepers are the other super frustrating thing with cold calling. Do you even waste your time with gatekeepers or how do you kind of approach that or recommend approaching?
So it depends. I think gatekeepers are an issue, obviously, more if you're selling into enterprise and you're selling into
Yeah.
C-suite, et cetera. Um, the first thing, let's talk about avoiding them first of all. I think that there's enough tools and resources to where no source is
Yeah.
great for phone numbers. Zoom info is probably 55,
Yeah.
60% accurate. So, first of all, I would try to get a cell phone number. Second of all, when I was selling into C-suite executives of, Fortune companies, I would intentionally call between 7 and 8 AM and then
Mm.
5 and 6 PM. The assistant's not working during
Ah,
those times. They're
smart.
clocking in and out. C-suite executives are C-suite executives because they
Yeah.
work their tail off. The notion is they don't do
Yeah.
anything except golf. That's not true. So I don't like the mindset of just a 9 to 5 or 8 to 5 rep. I want them to get really
Mhm.
creative on time. Go take a 2-hour lunch.
Yeah.
I don't care, but call
Yeah.
before and after. Same thing, 12 to 1, they're on lunch. So if I get a gatekeeper, I like trying to get them to point me
Yeah.
in the right direction. I think we put too much weight into C suite and don't realize how much that the C suite
Mhm.
actually
Mhm.
delegates. So if I'm calling somebody and I get a gatekeeper, her name's Carly, I'll use my wife's name. It's like, Carly, I don't know if I'm even barking up the wrong tree or the right tree. Do you know who manages this? And then I'll leave you alone. I mean, they're going to direct me to somebody on the
Yeah.
team, most likely. I'm not necessarily going to bust my butt to get
Yeah.
through that person. I may call that same C suite executive back after the assistant left, but I try to make friends with them and see if they can help you. People inherently
Mhm.
want to help you. It strokes their
I
ego. They
agree.
feel
I
important.
fully agree, especially that gatekeeper who's just handling these calls all day. If you can slow down, be a human, appreciate them, maybe just that little different interaction. Like, let's be real, we're all very nice to support people when we really need help. Like those phone support reps, we're like, hey, how are you doing today? Thank you so much for helping me today. You're the best. Because they probably don't get that throughout the day. And if I can be nice to them,
No.
and if they can kind of reciprocate, we're both gonna be in a way better spot.
Yeah. So, people will try to talk the assistant into transferring you, and once in a great while you
Yeah.
might get to. But think about it, their boss is gonna be
Yeah.
pissed that you
Yeah.
just let them through. Like, that's their job. Why would they ever transfer you? So, they might even say, "Yeah, Carla," I'm talking to Carly, "Jack's the right person, but send me
Mhm.
info and I'll pass it to him." That's still
Yeah.
better than nothing. And then in addition, I usually make the joke, let's be honest, I'm gonna send you an email and I'm never gonna hear back from you. What could I send you that would actually make you
Yeah.
pass this
Why
along?
not ask? Because if you don't ask, you don't know. If you ask, they might be like, well, if you can talk about this, this is something that we're working on right now. That's better than not knowing.
Yeah, it's better than a generic PDF
Yep,
that they don't care about.
exactly. So you kind of bring up a good point in the macro now that I'm thinking about this out loud is we have outbound reps focus so much on title, like the C-suite, because ultimately they would be the signature that's required. Is that just a waste of time though? Should we really be focusing on the direct reports, figuring out who would actually own the project, and rather than trying to lob 50 calls a day against C-suite, we go lob 50 against the senior directors?
Yes. Again, I think people don't realize how much the C-suite has to delegate because they have
Mhm.
so much on their plate. When I started Identity Matrix, I was under the notion that I was going
Mhm.
to talk to CMOs. The CMOs might sign the check, but they're going to do what their team tells them, assuming
Yeah.
they trust their team. And that's a different problem if not. What I actually now like doing is targeting
Mm.
director level, some VPs, but I actually went down 2 layers to the
Yeah.
director level and I have
Yeah.
amazing
Yeah. I
success.
agree because less people are calling them. They're more open-minded. They want,
Mhm.
like you said, honestly, they want to feel more important. And so if you're coming to them, getting their feedback, and you're way more likely to get engagement there and push up than you are to go all the way to the freaking CRO of a Fortune 1000, like you said, and get their attention and their time.
People call it top to bottom or bottom up, type of sales. Well, why not
Yeah.
start with the middle, right? I'm gonna shave some time off all those calls where I'm trying to convert people into champions and eventually I
Yeah.
get to the right person. I'm gonna shorten that sales cycle, but yeah, I'm gonna do
Okay.
that a little bit. So I think mid-level management like a director is very,
So
very underrated.
average enterprise team, let's call it AE SDR duo. Now that we're talking through this, I would almost suggest like, hey, AEs, you guys go top, go after C suite, do your thing. SDRs, you're going to go be detectives. Like you're going to fill out the clue card through calling the mid level of what they use, what they've used in the past, current state, initiatives, all of that. And then you can like tie that together and you're going to break in eventually top or bottom. But that SDR in an enterprise relationship should very much more be like a detective than, the one who's going to go book the meeting with the CEO.
Yes, but there's one thing that I like doing as well. I like to play a lot of games. So if my SDR screws something up, they have a bad chat with somebody, I'm gonna reach out to that same person and say, "Hey, sounds like Jack on my team really messed this up. Like, can I understand why you aren't
Mhm.
interested or what happened?" And again, you're asking for
Yep.
help, but the SDR can do that for the AE as well. The AE is not having a good time trying to break into the C-suite. The SDR can follow up and say, "Hey, Jack on my team, who's actually more senior than me, but Jack on my team tried reaching out. I want to understand what we can do to earn your business, yada yada yada." I don't think people play games enough. They look at seniority as
Yeah.
the end all be all. I used to say my boss was on my team. People that reported to me would say
Yeah.
that I was on their team. And when it's 2 people going after 1 person, your conversion rate
Yes. Yep.
skyrockets.
Full agree. Talk to me about LinkedIn and kind of using it for outbound because the last industry I was in was restaurant owners. They were not on LinkedIn. And
No.
yeah,
Facebook.
Facebook, exactly. So LinkedIn, is it very dependent on the industry you sell to? Because a lot of what we get in the LinkedIn sphere is just salespeople selling to salespeople. And so, of course, like they're on LinkedIn. And so a lot of content is focused on
Yeah.
how to sell on LinkedIn. But for the average sales team, I don't think LinkedIn's even that relevant. Would you agree?
No. Here's why. We all have LinkedIn on our phones. Now, you and me, we're all over LinkedIn. I get it. I'll use this as an example. So, right now, I have a client in the packaging space. They do packaging for like Kroger,
Mm,
Amazon, etc. They're targeting
mm.
directors of procurement. Procurement's not hanging out on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
I agree with you. However, I
Mm,
actually like that because that director of procurement still likely has LinkedIn on their
yeah.
phone regardless. So when you actually do disrupt their pattern and you send them something, it's more attention grabbing. In addition, you get a twofer. LinkedIn, if they don't read the message, is then going to send them an email. And by the way, Microsoft owns them. You have 100%
Mm,
deliverability from LinkedIn. So you get
that's
them
awesome.
twice.
Yeah.
So am I saying that am I saying the response rate's gonna be super high? No, but it's a really good way to get in front of them in a
Yeah.
very
Yeah.
quick manner.
I think that's a really cool way to think about it almost backwards, where it's like, because they're not on the platform, yes, you want to use it. Where, in my life, I've got people calling me, emailing me, LinkedIning me. If I ever had someone send me like a letter in the mail, that is very disruptive. Like, I never use mail, right? And so I would definitely be like reading that, like, what is this? Who sent me a freaking letter?
I had an advisor this morning. We're raising a small round of funding, and we're trying to get somebody on the phone in particular. My advisor is friends with him, but he's been a little bit of a pain
Mm,
responding to us. My advisor, his name's Matt, knows that this guy is using an 8-year-old Xbox, even though he's worth a ton of money. So what we're doing is overnight shipping
let's
an
go.
Xbox to
Come
him.
on. Come on.
It beats snail mail by a lot, right? And when you're talking about an investment, a $400 Xbox is
Yeah.
perfectly fine, right? Can you do that all the time? No, but you got to get really creative. So, like a restaurant owner, do they have
Yeah.
LinkedIn on their phone? Probably not. I get it. But for somebody that's in the corporate world, they are on LinkedIn. They don't use it every day, maybe every 6 months, but if you think there's reason to believe they have it on their phone, I think
And
you
I
should be
guess
using
at
it.
the same time, it's like, why not? It's probably what, 10 more minutes to your workflow tops? Like, why not do that? Yeah.
Eh.
I don't, yeah, that's a good point.
One thing I'll note about LinkedIn, and everyone jacks this up when they start, never send a custom message or any message in
Correct.
a connection
Correct.
request
Yep.
ever.
Full agree. Send a blank request, let them accept, then you get access to DMing them.
Yep. Especially one last thing I'll note, and if I'm rambling, tell me. I don't like having account executive in your
Mm,
headline
mhm.
on LinkedIn. If I have a AE reach out to me, I'm probably not going to
Yeah.
accept the
Agree.
invite. So, for example, that packaging company, I told them to switch all their titles to
Yep.
supply chain specialists, and they're connecting with procurement folks. Who cares what the
Yeah.
internal title is? I want
Yeah,
to get an
full agree.
open.
I mean, you could even get away with like supply chain. Like you're just in the industry. You're in the orbit.
Yeah, why
Yeah,
not?
I fully agree. Now, real quick, anyone listening to this, you are now under NDA because I have a business idea. I say we contract with Amazon, we get drones, and we can do drone drop off, like direct mail, but drone drop off to people and get their attention that way. Let's do
I
it.
like that.
Um,
I 100% like that, or even just have it bring in a business card, but it hands it to them
yes,
and then flies
exactly,
away.
exactly. I love it. What are
I
your
like that.
favorite subject lines? Like, how do you think about subject lines? What I like to do with subject lines is definitely make them different. Like, you don't want them to look like all the other ones. There's also a list of keywords you want to avoid with subject lines because of the spam filtering and all of that. So, those are like two cornerstones, essentials. But what do you like to do in addition with subject lines to actually capture attention?
Short, vague, and
Yes.
ambiguous. So relevant to the topic, yes, but I want it to almost be like, is this
Hmm.
an internal email? So I'll give you an example. I target a lot of folks that are using like Sixth Sense, Demand Base, etc. We kind of compete indirectly, but we're really more complementary to what they do. So if you're spending on Sixth Sense and Demand Base, it tells me that you're willing to invest into your Martech, and therefore I'm a good fit potentially, right? So I sent a lot of emails to people that are using Demand Based Six Sense Mad Kudu. I would literally just put Six Sense in
Genius.
the subject line and it had like a 65 or
Genius.
70%
Yep.
open rate. Or company name ABM, or like
Yeah.
super short and vague.
Yeah,
They have to
because
open it.
that is could be an email from the internal software they're using. Hey, there's an important update or something, and boom, they open it. It's your message that's super relevant to what platform they're using.
And yes, it's flirting with some gray area of slightly misleading, but at the end of the day, I am talking about 6 cents. I am talking about ABM, etc. It's not like I'm sending a subject line
Right.
internal audit and then trying to sell them on, something
Yeah.
completely irrelevant, but as short as humanly possible,
Mhm.
lowercase everything except obviously if it's an acronym like ABM. But to where they're like, I don't have enough info in this subject line to know if it's spam.
Yes,
I have to
that is
open
the
it.
key. What you just said is the key, what we should be thinking through. We want to give them that effect of like, okay, wait, what is this? Because when you look at your inbox, it's like spam, keep, spam, keep, archive, archive. That's the mindset. So if you can just make it hard to discern,
Yep.
you've already won because now they're slowing down. They're like, what is this? Click it. What is this? Okay, cool. I read it kind of. And now you've hooked them.
And no one can convince me that cold emails don't work. Now, it is a lot harder now, absolutely. And I actually think cold calling has higher conversion
Mhm.
rates than email at this point. However, I mean, I'll give you, I drink my own Kool Aid, so to speak, or eat my own dog food. It's more politically correct. Oracle pitched me in a cold email. We just switched from Azure to Oracle for all of our hosting, like solely from a cold email. This
Yeah.
stuff can work. I was wondering why the heck Oracle was reaching out. Obviously, there's brand recognition, but I think the subject line was like
Yeah.
server costs.
What does that
Great.
mean? I wanna open
Like,
it.
let
Yeah,
me check that
exactly.
out.
And if you think
Yeah.
about it, even in, the context of sending internal emails, like me as an SDR manager, I'm not gonna send an email to my higher up that says, "SDR name, 2024 performance plan review." I would just be like, "Susan." That's it, right? And so it's kinda that same mindset of what do we do internally and why do we get all weird and salesy externally?
I think we're trying to please
Mhm.
people. I think we all are afraid of rejection and we really want to please people so that
Mhm.
they're nice to us. I don't need you to like me. I don't need you to find what I'm saying all fancy and great and whatnot. I just need to pique your interest. I call it
Yeah,
emotional curiosity. You're not going to relate to them via logic. It
yeah,
will not work. Maybe if you're targeting IT or somebody that's all numbers and, just a little more objective. But we all buy emotionally. We've heard that 1,000 times, but we don't
yeah.
implement that fully. So yes, I love your example. Would I send this to my boss? If not, I'm
Yep.
probably not going to
Yep.
send it.
1000%. Well, I think it's only right that as we wrap up here, we end with the end of an email, call to action. Anything specific there? Do you like asking for time? Do you like going for a yes and no, or do you like the open ended question and making them reply?
I like more open ended. It depends on what you're selling. So, like for Identity Matrix, I'll often say, hey, can I show you what we're doing or even get you on a POC, whichever you prefer, free trial, whatever. So, I like giving them options. You can test it and mix it up, and that's fine too. But the best thing I can say is don't stick with one CTA and just be done. You absolutely need to mix it up, leave it open ended. Hey, are you even the right person to speak with? Is this even worth interest, etc. I don't like the style of like, hey, here are three time
Yeah, yeah,
slots.
yeah.
Which one works
Yeah,
for
you
you?
haven't earned their time yet.
Not my,
You haven't provided enough value.
no.
So to your point, I kinda like the concept
Yeah.
of pre-handling the replies you're probably gonna get anyway, like, "I'm not the right person," or "We already have X." Those are 2 really good questions just to ask right there, like, I'm assuming you already have competitor or competitor stood up, is that right? Question mark? Like, yeah, like you're pre-handling it kind of to open that combo, or maybe you're saying something like, "Hey, I might have the wrong person here. Should is this better directed towards insert other name or persona or title?" And
Yeah.
that's what they're gonna reply anyway, so you might as well beat them to it and start that conversation with something in common where they're in agreement with you rather than you, like, trying to push back on something that they haven't even conceded.
Last thing I'll know as we wrap up, I think people are under the idea that, so I don't believe in the idea that yes, no
Mm,
questions are bad. When you're on a cold call, the general idea in sales is ask open ended questions. You have to earn the right to do that. So if I ask you an open-ended question, I'm formulating it in a way where you can send me a very short response. I'm not asking
Mhm.
for a paragraph. Like, hey, can you tell me about your ABM strategy? No, I'm not writing 3 paragraphs or
Yeah,
3 pages for you. I could ask something like, "Are you open to ABM tools?" Or, "Do you love 6 Sense?" Or whatever, right? I like even if it sounds open-ended, it needs to be worded in a way that they can respond
correct.
very short
Correct. Yeah,
and
back to the
quick.
earlier point, the C-suite doesn't have time to reply with 2 paragraphs, it's just not happening. Give them an easy way to be like, "Yes, no," whatever the response is.
And on a cold call, I like rapid fire yes or no questions, getting them deeper and deeper into the chat to where then I will turn into open-ended questions and turn into a
Yep.
legitimate dialogue. And I'm going to earn the right to do that by asking quick yes or no's to where they feel like, okay, this might be
Yeah,
worth a
and my take on
conversation.
email is you're just trying to get a reply because if you get a reply, you likely have a phone number in their signature line now, and you know you've got the right email, and you've got potentially the right person. So you're not even trying to book a meeting over an email right away. It's really just validation that you're talking to the right person, and now you've got more info to work with.
People are under the assumption that they're selling via cold email or cold call. You're not. Yeah, absolutely. Well, you're selling them on something, but it's not your product. It's
Yeah,
just a next
that's
step.
it.
Can I earn the right to have that
That's it.
conversation?
That's it.
I think if we look at it like that, it takes a lot of
Well, tell
pressure
us what you're
off.
doing over at Identity Matrix. Time to plug the business. I want to hear what you're doing and how we can keep up with you, man.
So I appreciate that. In a nutshell, we love SDRs. Identity Matrix is a person level
Mhm.
identification tool. It's good for marketers because they can understand the quality of their traffic, who's coming to their site, etc. But if somebody's sitting on your site for 7 minutes and you know what pages they're looking at, if I'm a BDR or SDR, I want to call
Wow.
that person now, right? The average person goes to a website 7 to 12 times before they convert. That's Salesforce or HubSpot stat. I don't recall which. Well, if you catch them on visit number 1 or 2 and you're the one able to influence their entire buying journey,
Yeah.
amazing. So that's where we come in. I'm a sales guy at heart. There's a bunch of marketing applications too, but at the end of the day, we're trying to help you get person level intent
That's
is what I would
incredible. I
put
mean,
it.
I worked at Clearbit years ago, and that was one thing we hadn't quite cracked yet, which was like the person level. And I had always dreamed about that. Man, if I only knew who it was. And it sounds like you've cracked that code.
Yeah, I won't name names, but there's other competitors that were a little earlier to market than us, and one is all over LinkedIn, and I'll leave it to you. That being said, any of our competitors, they de-anonymize 15 to 20, sometimes 25% of traffic. We de-anonymize 70
Come
on an
on,
average
let's
day.
go. Let's go. Well done, man. Your wisdom and your insights super helpful. We call this the modern sales leader because we want to hear from people that are actually doing the job. And you're out here doing it. And I really just appreciate you sharing your wisdom with us today, man. Thank you. Of
Yeah. Appreciate
course.
you having me, Jack.
Thanks for tuning in to another episode of the Modern Sales Leader podcast. Really good takeaways from Steven. Very practical stuff we can go implement and A/B test in our own businesses today. So just want to say thank you, Steven. You're awesome. By the way, if you enjoyed this episode, go ahead and drop us a like, hit subscribe, drop a comment. We'd love to keep these coming. Stay tuned for the next one.